What happens when Barron Trump, standing on the grandest stage of his life, catches sight of someone from his past? A teacher who once saw him for who he truly was, not the son of a billionaire? What Barron Trump discovers next is a truth that will shatter everything he thought he knew about power, loyalty, and the people who shape us. A sea of red, white, and blue stretched across the National Mall, thousands of voices rising in unison, a tidal wave of applause and cheers. The cold, January air bit sharply, but no one seemed to mind. All eyes were on the podium where the 45th President of the United States stood, his hand on the Bible, about to take the oath of office. Cameras flashed, news anchors whispered into microphones, and somewhere beyond the layers of security, the weight of the moment settled over the nation. Barron Trump stood beside his father, still and silent. At just 10 years old, he was used to being watched. He knew how to stand, when to smile, how to appear composed in front of millions. But in this moment, his mind wasn't on the speeches or the history being made. Something had pulled his attention away. His gaze drifted beyond the podium, beyond the front rows filled with dignitaries and political elites. He scanned the endless crowd, faces blurring together, until one face stopped him cold. A woman stood a few rows back, wrapped in a thick scarf, her breath curling in the frigid air. Unlike the others, she wasn't holding a sign or a phone. She wasn't clapping or chanting. She was just watching. Watching him. Barron's heart pounded. He knew that face. Miss Holloway, his third-grade teacher, his favorite teacher, the one who had made learning feel like an escape, who had treated him like a person, not a last name. But she had disappeared years ago, no warning, no goodbye. One day she was there, leading the class in an art project, laughing as she wiped paint off a student's nose. The next, she was gone. The school had given vague answers, budget cuts, staff changes. Nothing had made sense, and now here she was. She looked different. Older, tired. The warmth in her eyes was still there, but beneath it, something else lingered. Pain, regret, something he couldn't quite name. The wind howled around him, the world moving in slow motion. The inauguration, the speeches, the history, it all faded into the background. Because Barron Trump suddenly knew, deep in his bones, that whatever had happened to Miss Holloway, he was about to find out. Barron blinked, his breath hitching. His fingers curled at his sides as he fought the urge to step forward, to call out to her. But he couldn't. Not here. Not with cameras pointed at him from every direction. He stole another glance. Miss Holloway was still watching him, but there was something strange about her posture, stiff, uncertain. Her eyes flickered to the Secret Service agent stationed near the barriers. Then, as if she had made a decision, she turned abruptly and disappeared into the crowd. Barron's pulse quickened. Number she couldn't just vanish again. He tried to track her, shifting on his feet to get a better view. But the mass of people swallowed her whole, and within seconds, she was gone. Barron. His mother's soft voice pulled him back. He turned to see Melania watching him with a hint of concern. Beyond her, his father was shaking hands, the crowd roaring as the ceremony concluded. "Are you all right?" she asked. Barron hesitated, then nodded. What could he say? That he had just seen a ghost from his past? That a woman he hadn't thought about in years had suddenly appeared, only to vanish again? No one would believe him. But as he followed his family toward the next stage of the inauguration, his mind refused to let it go. Miss Holloway was here, and she didn't want to be seen. Why? Barron sat on the edge of his bed that night, staring at the city lights beyond his window. The grandeur of the White House surrounded him, but his mind was somewhere else. Lost in the past, trapped in the moment he had seen Miss Holloway again. Why was she there? Why had she disappeared so quickly? He picked up his phone, hesitating. Who could he even ask? His parents? They wouldn't know. His old school? They had brushed off her disappearance years ago. Frustration simmered in his chest. Miss Holloway hadn't just been another teacher, she was different. She had made school feel like more than just a place to exist. She had understood him when no one else had. And then, she was gone. His fingers hovered over a search bar. Miss Holloway, Columbus, Ohio. He hit enter. Nothing. No social media, no recent records. It was like she had vanished off the face of the earth. But she hadn't. She was here, in D.C., watching him. Barron's jaw tightened. He wasn't a helpless 10-year-old anymore. He had resources now. Power. If she was out there, he would find her. He stood, determination hardening inside him. Tomorrow, he would start asking questions. The next morning, Barron wasted no time. The inaugural celebrations had ended and the world had moved on, but he couldn't shake the image of Miss Holloway from his mind. The woman who had once made him feel seen, not as a political figure's son, but as a boy who loved to learn. He sat in his study at the White House, his laptop open, and began his search. First, he tried her name combined with the town, Columbus, Ohio. The results were sparse. An old teaching profile, a community forum post, but nothing recent. His frustration grew. He wasn't used to this, being stumped. But Miss Holloway had always been different. A quiet force in his life. And if anyone could track her down, it was him. He turned to the security team. He knew they had resources he didn't, databases, connections, and a network of people who could help. With a quiet request and little explanation, Barron asked for them to trace her. "Just someone I used to know," he'd said, avoiding any further details. As the days passed, he found himself anxiously awaiting any lead, wondering what he would uncover about the woman who had once shaped his world. 2 days after Barron made his request, the answer came. He was sitting in the study again, flipping through his notes from the inauguration, when a member of the security team entered with a folder. "Mr. Trump," the officer said, handing it over. "We found her." Barron's heart raced as he opened the folder, scanning the details. Miss Holloway was still living in Columbus, Ohio in a modest one-bedroom apartment above a laundromat. There were no details about her employment status, no updates on her life. It was as if she had disappeared into the ordinary world far removed from the life Barron now led. A sense of unease washed over him. He couldn't understand how someone who had once meant so much to him could be living in such difficult conditions. The woman who had shown him kindness, the one who had taught him more than just lessons on a chalkboard, deserved better than this. But there it was. The harsh reality. Miss Holloway, the teacher who had nurtured him, was now a shadow of the woman he remembered. Without thinking, Barron pulled out his phone and made the call. His fingers trembled slightly as he dialed the number he'd been given. When the phone rang, each second felt like an eternity. Finally, a voice on the other end. "Hello?" It was her. Barron's breath caught in his throat. It was her voice, unmistakable despite the years that had passed. "Miss Holloway?" His voice trembled as the words left his mouth. There was a long pause before she answered, her voice soft and cautious. "Who is this?" "It's Barron. Barron Trump." The silence stretched, thick with years of absence and unspoken words. Barron could hear the slight catch in her breath, as if she hadn't expected him to be the one on the other end. "I saw you at the inauguration," Barron added quickly. "You were there, weren't you?" "Yes," she replied, her voice quieter now. "I wasn't sure you saw me." The weight of her words hung between them. Barron wanted to say so much, to ask why she had disappeared, why she had been so absent from his life. But instead, he found himself struggling for the right words. I just had to know if it was really you," he confessed. "I thought I was imagining it, but I knew that face. You were my favorite teacher, the one who treated me like a normal kid." Miss Holloway sighed, the sound of exhaustion seeping through the phone. "It's been a long time, Barron, too long." "I know," he whispered. "I want to help you. I need to know how." There was a long pause on the other end. Finally, Miss Holloway spoke again, her voice filled with a quiet strength. "I never wanted you to carry the burden of what happened, Barron." He clenched his jaw, determined not to let her disappear again. "But I'm not letting this go. I want to help." As Miss Holloway stepped into the new chapter of her life, Barron stood there, a quiet sense of fulfillment settling in his chest. In that moment, he realized the true meaning of power wasn't about wealth or fame. It was about using what you had to change the lives of those who shaped you. For the first time, he understood that the greatest debt wasn't one measured in money, but in the quiet, meaningful gestures that showed someone you saw them, believed in them, and helped them rise again. And as Miss Holloway walked away, Barron knew this wasn't just the end of her story. It was the beginning of something far greater. Sometimes the best way to repay someone is not through words, but through action that transforms their world forever. If this story moved you, don't forget to subscribe, and share because sometimes the right words reach the right people at just the right time.